Our first show of the week, lcpioneers.com live, presented by PioStream, as we keep you connected with student athletes, coaches, the community from Lewis and Clark, and alumni 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday at 11:30 on Facebook Live, and with all of our shows archived available on demand at youtube.com/lcpios. I hope everyone's week is treating them to a good start. I am Ryan Goff. I'm the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications at Lewis and Clark. We are the Pioneers based out of Portland, Oregon, and a member of the Northwest Conference, competing with other institutions from throughout Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, part of NCAA Division III, with 430 plus institutions nationwide competing on a countrywide scale and throughout the world in terms of overseas study opportunities for our student athletes and students alike, the opportunity to participate in curriculums from throughout the world. And that's going to be a big topic of today's guest. We're going to have Annika Clunk join us. She is a recently, in fact, within the last week, recently graduated senior from the Lewis and Clark golf program, but she studied for a full year as part of her German studies major. She was a double major with economics as well. And that's unique because most of the students that I interact with at Lewis and Clark usually go for a one semester program. And Annika was gone for an entire junior year. So we'll talk to her about what that experience was like. Returning back to the golf program, she was certainly one of the best golfers for Lewis and Clark in this past season, a season that was cut short with coronavirus pandemic as all the spring sports had their season canceled. So really only the fall that the Pioneers got to compete in when you look at it. But we'll talk to her about her 4 years at Palatine Hill and Lewis and Clark coming up in just a moment. Do invite you to interact with us. You can ask questions for Annika or anything in our comments below on our Facebook live stream. You can also email us sports@lclark.edu and on Twitter and Instagram at LC Pioneers. That is our handle. We do want to give a big shout out to Zeke Crawford. He was recently named a nominee for the Ad Rushman Small College Athlete of the Year. Oregon Sports Awards have been going on for quite some time. In fact, former men's basketball player Alex Jones, former women's basketball player Aisha Afalabi have all been part of the Oregon Sports Awards in recent memory. And the Small College Athlete of the Year is the best small college student athlete from the entire state. Zeke was not a finalist, but certainly a nominee from the pool. They drew four finalists this year. Big congratulations to Mitchell Fink at Oregon Tech, Joseph Gonzalez at Western Oregon, and then Mason Cook and Wyatt Smith from George Fox and Linfield, respectively, both members of the Northwest Conference. But Zeke, on an all-region caliber year, was definitely in the mix for that award, and certainly had hoped to see him get it as a finalist, at least. They're going to announce the winners of those awards coming up all this week. They're doing a week-long reveal on NBC Sports Northwest and Rip City Radio out of Portland. Also want to give a big shout out to Emily Schmeling, also a recently graduated senior student athlete from the tennis program. She was recently named the Paul Barney Award winner. And this is pretty cool because Emily, to receive the award, had to have an athletic component. She had to be a varsity student athlete for at least a year, but everything else that goes into it too. Strong work ethic when it comes to resident life, some of the academic accomplishments, certainly, but just a general love of life and sense of humor. That was some of the criteria for the Paul Barney Award, and it was neat to see Emily get that. You can go to Instagram and check out LC Pioneers women's tennis on there, LC Pios W10, to read more about that. So we'll keep you in the loop. We mentioned YouTube. We do want you to check that out. Our entire playlist of shows available to watch on demand. I think we're in week 8 of having this show on the air, so doing our best to keep you connected. You go to youtube.com/lcpios for a complete archive of all of our shows. So with that, let's bring in our guests for today. We have 4 live guests all week, so we're excited to start things off with Annika Clunk, class of 2020, a Lewis and Clark student athlete from women's golf. Appreciate you joining us on lcpioneers.com live. Annika, you're fresh off. I mean, commencement was this last weekend, and now kind of turning into your post Lewis and Clark era. Just kind of curious, as you turn the page, kind of what's ahead for you? What are you looking to do professionally with your economics and German studies degrees?
Yeah, of course. I mean, with this whole COVID situation, it's been rather difficult to be a recent graduate. Like, there's not a lot open, and especially there's more competition created in the job market right now. And being an economist, I'm pretty sure that, unemployment is getting very, very high, and we're just wanting to start like our careers, and it's really difficult. However, it's really important to stay passionate and stay focused on a career path that you really enjoy. And for me, that's been a focus on economic consulting or economic research or even in cybersecurity. And I definitely see myself in one of those paths in the very near future.
You did the double major with German studies and economics. Was that the plan from the onset for you? Did you know you were locked into those majors? What's the story behind kind of how you chose those two paths?
Yeah. So I had always wanted to do economics. I was curious about it ever since taking a single class sophomore year in high school. And I always knew that that was something I was really passionate about because I really liked how econ kind of combines analytical and theoretical aspects. Like there's so much theory involved. There's always a question of if we actually understand what we're talking about. And I really like that. I really like that pursuit of proving things and of discovering the unknown. But German was actually a very random addition. Lewis and Clark requires a language, and you have to take 3 semesters of one as a freshman and sophomore typically. And for me, I took Spanish all 4 years of high school. So I had tested out of the language requirement, but after hearing so much about the language program and me like having always wanted to learn German, ever since I was a kid. I was like, why not just try German? I never really thought I would ever consider majoring in it until I had been up to the 3rd semester and my professor was like, you're kind of good at this. Like maybe you should continue it. And I was like, why not? Like at first it didn't really seem doable because the German major requires a year of study abroad in Germany, but it ended up working out really well and now it was probably one of the best decisions that I made to be a double major.
And we are going to talk about that extensive overseas experience because I mentioned, there's not a lot of students that I've met personally that have done the full year, especially out of the student athlete pool, because you typically miss a season, which is what you did. I do want to talk about that in just a moment, but one thing that stood out to me is you were a participant in the Winterim program at Lewis and Clark. And any opportunity to talk to anyone who's been a part of that program, I take it because I think it's one of like the hidden gems of Lewis and Clark. How did you find out about Winterim, and why was it something that you decided to participate in?
Yeah, it was absolutely not something that I knew about. I was actually convinced to go by Ryan Stewart, who was a year older on the basketball team. He was like, "I think you should really do this to like increase your networking and stuff." And I was like, like entrepreneurship, like do I watch enough Shark Tank? I'm like, I don't want to just get my ideas, you know, put down the toilet. I was like, why would I want to do something like that? But it ended up being one of the greatest experiences I had had, not only in terms of networking, but in terms of like building critical thinking and problem solving skills and being a part of a community, like a small community of entrepreneurs was just such a new, unique experience that not a lot of people really get the chance to do. And especially being in Portland, there's so many startups. Like the startup community here is awesome. There's so much innovation going on and so many people who really want young, fresh graduates to come up with new ideas and be the innovators for the next generation. And it was definitely something that I learned was that entrepreneurship isn't something that people do because they don't want to make money and may not be successful. It's something that needs to happen so that we can pursue better things in our society today. Like we need entrepreneurs, and I'm really happy to have learned a mindset like that.
Yeah, the proximity from Lewis and Clark just being 6 miles from downtown Portland has that connection to everything from existing businesses to Silicon Forest, which you talk about with entrepreneurship and that Bates Center, Winthrop. They do a really fast-paced, immersive week. It happens between the fall and the spring semester. So I'm excited that you talked a little bit about that and your experience with it because I've been to at least two of the sessions, pitch competitions that they do, and it's pretty neat to hear all the ideas that come out of it and real opportunities to get funded too. We did put in our Facebook comments a link to find out more about Wintram, but it's great that you had that experience. And Ryan brought you along too because Ryan and I've seen him involved in a lot of the entrepreneurial stuff at Lewis and Clark, and to see him recommend that is neat too because it's a word of mouth thing. I mean, once you get to
Oh,
campus, man, you find
absolutely.
out about it. Yeah. Um, when it comes to favorite classes, Annika, I mean, maybe professors, what are some of the, I guess, the best moments just from the pure academic experience at Lewis and Clark that kind of stick with you still?
Yeah, my freshman year, I decided to take philosophy ethics. because I thought it sounded interesting. And that was my first semester ever at Lewis and Clark. So I took philosophy ethics with Joel Martinez, and that had to have been one of the best classes I had ever taken at LC outside of my majors. And it was such a fun experience being able to talk about really real current situations, but with a little philosophical light. And what I love the most about Joel is that he continued to say hi to me and ask me about updates, and he knew my name up until my senior year. And that's just something that's so unique to Lewis and Clark. Like I had a class with this professor my first semester freshman year, and he knew my name the entire 4 years at Lewis and Clark for me. And that is just such a cool experience to be able to talk about, and really goes to show how much professors really care about their students and want to see people succeed in life, even if it's in a major that you might not have considered before. And then in terms of classes I've taken within economics, I have really enjoyed all classes I've had with both Brian Dombeck and Eric Timoin. Both of them really push you to try to crack down theoretical findings. Like it's really about finding weaknesses in results, and really about trying to find your perspective and bringing out stuff that you can interpret very uniquely. And both of those professors have absolutely pushed me to think different ways and analyze situations in a different light. And I'm very grateful for that.
Well, and then you talk about the relationship building there too. I mean, that's one of the benefits of the small class sizes. And I've thought, the experiential version of liberal arts education that Lewis and Clark provides, even go back to the idea of Wintram, right? That's an experience that you're able to take with you. I appreciate you sharing those two ideas because I see that a lot out of Lewis and Clark students. She's Annika Clunk, class of 2020, joining us on lcpioneers.com live. When you look back, competitively, 4 years, 3 seasons competing for the Pioneers as a women's golf student athlete. Man, what sticks with you most? I mean, was there a best story or a best moment that really, you can highlight from your time as a Pioneer student athlete?
Yeah, I think anytime we took the charter bus to Spokane was always just a really fun night, because we're a very small program. There's only like 12 of us total, like men and women. So we would always have the entire charter bus, and each of us would have like 3 or 4 rows. And it was just such a fun time, like getting to know people's bus personalities, seeing how they handle like that awesome like 8-hour road trip up to Spokane. And those memories have always like stayed with me, about either playing games on the bus, or we one time stopped at like McDonald's to get like kids meals, like McFlurries and stuff. It's like those things you can't really replace. And those have always been really fun moments. And unfortunately, we would have been going to Spokane this spring season again, but it's all right. I still
Oh,
have those awesome memories from the past.
well, and let's talk about the canceled spring season because that's been also one of the um, things that we want to emphasize with this show, especially early on, is to try to get spring athletes like yourself on to talk about that unfortunate experience. I mean, how did you find out that the spring season was canceled, and kind of, how did you adapt with staying in touch with teammates and kind of coping, especially as a senior, the only senior for women's golf that lost the season?
Right. I definitely, in our program, it definitely affected me more, because exactly like you said, like I was the only senior, like I was the only one who was just cut off from my collegiate golf career. And it was really tough at first. I'm really grateful that golf is a dual season sport. So at least I got the fall, but it's not the same level of competition. Like you have your real competition in the spring when you're fighting for those division championships and to go to the NFC championships. And it was tough to just say goodbye. And I remember it being, I guess, the first or second week of March, when this whole like COVID situation was just kind of starting. And at first I was like, oh, there's no way they're going to cancel golf. Like, there's no way like our school's going to close. Like, we'll be fine. And then sure enough, a couple days later, I had went and talked to coach, and I was like, it's not looking good. And it was just kind of a mutual like understanding that this would be it. And I mean, there's not much you can do about it. It's something out of my control, but I think as a team, we've been really strong through this, especially from, a lot of the underclassmen on the team, like showing a lot of support for me, which has been really awesome. And we have always had a great team dynamic. And that was something I was really worried about, because I had been gone a whole year. and I had just entered a team of people who I never knew because they were all freshmen and sophomores when I was abroad. And I'm very grateful to have had such a supportive and loving, passionate team who had always been there for me.
You have Coach Yen who took over this program partway through your career. Describe him as a coach and some of his best aspects, and then even with the women's team specifically, allude to kind of the future of this program and what were
Mm-hmm.
some of the bright spots you saw from the team that will come back next year.
Yeah, Coach Yan definitely made me love the game. He became a coach my sophomore year, so I had had a different coach freshman year. But sophomore year, my attitude had completely changed. I feel like freshman year, I was just a scared new college athlete who wanted to win so bad and had such a negative attitude when I would do bad. But having Coach Yen come in, he just brought such a positive light to like me and my team. Like he really tried to emphasize that it's not necessarily about winning, it's about trying your best but actually enjoying the sport. I remember he would always tell us like, you're playing free golf, and I'm like, you're right, we are playing free golf. Like, golf ain't cheap. So he really had a very good influence on my attitude and my behavior on the course. And golf is such a mental game that when your attitude picks up, like, you obviously play better. And for him, I'm very grateful for always being so optimistic and so supportive, even in bad times in the pouring rain when I really didn't want to be outside. But he was always there motivating. And in terms of the future of the program, like, I am so confident in his ability to recruit. Like, he knows that us, like, on the team are the best recruiters, but he also knows that he can really be a good middle ground in getting good competitive players. And I could see that by having seen the team this year when I had never met anyone, but he had recruited them all. And I was like, this is a really good team. Like, he can not only pick people who are competitive on the golf course, he can pick people who he knows are going to be good teammates. And that's something that's really important and very unique to Coach Yen.
Well, and I've always imagined, I think you're, Scottsdale, Arizona, best golf weather you could possibly come up with. And you end up coming up to Northwest. I'm sure there's that adjustment period.
Oh, absolutely. It was definitely a fun 4 years.
Overseas study. I mean, I definitely want to get into that because, like talked about, kind of as a student athlete, usually you don't have those full years abroad, and you did with the German studies program. And you even alluded to it a little bit earlier about why that became like a good choice for you, even though you would miss one of your seasons, whether it was the fall or the spring. Why did you decide to do it, and maybe just describe some of the best experiences you had because you did it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, studying abroad and taking the full year in Munich, Germany is required for the German major. But just because it's required doesn't mean I didn't have fun. Like, it was for sure one of the best years of my college career. Being able to study someplace where you're new and speaking the language is really challenging at first. Like, and especially because the program forces you to speak German. Like, you're not allowed to speak English. And it really was an awesome experience to dive into a culture that you have had no previous adaptation to. And being able to evolve yourself and adapt and overcome these challenges is something that Lewis and Clark really did prepare me for. Like, being able to think on your feet and being able to quickly adapt to different situations has been like key to me being successful in Germany. And one of the best things about the program is the amount of freedom you're given. You have options to choose internships, to study. And I ended up getting an internship in a finance department, which was really awesome. Like, speaking German on a finance team, like learning all these random German finance words, but actually feeling like a worker, like feeling a part of a company that's completely foreign. Like, you no longer feel like a traveler or a foreigner. You feel like a German. You feel like you belong there. And studying abroad has definitely opened my mind to thinking more about international perspectives, which has encouraged me to write my thesis in econ, which was about inflation in the Eurozone. So being able to open your mind to such diverse perspectives and opportunities and ideas abroad is really key. And that has really stayed with me throughout my time in Germany.
Well, I think what's neat is you talked about like that flexibility to have the opportunity to experience, let alone just a curriculum. It sounds like that maybe has stuck with you as a key takeaway of why that's a valuable program.
Oh, absolutely. And when you step your foot into what there is in the world, like you can't just go back. Like now I have this drive to go back, maybe even get my master's from Germany. I have like such a passion to want to explore the world and see how I can impact change. And that's something that has been really essential for me and to find like my purpose in career or in life or stuff like that.
Uh, the one other thing that I wanted to bring up, if we had time, and we luckily do, is I work out at the Zentbauer Swimming Pavilion, and constantly I'm seeing tour groups walking by our window with potential, future Lewis and Clark students. You're one of the students who have led those tours. What is it like to be a tour guide and get to show off, the secret that we know about this beautiful forested campus that's 6 miles from downtown Portland, Oregon? What's it like to be able to share that experience with people who've never seen it before?
It is honestly one of the best things I've done. It has been so fun. I have been a tour guide since freshman year, obviously my second semester, so I knew a little bit about the school before giving tours, but it had been such a fun time like leading new students around campus because you're introducing them into your world as a student and you can read on paper all you want about Lewis and Clark and how awesome it is, but you just have to go to campus, hear it from a student, and actually see for yourself, like both the beauty and the awesome academic potential that's given at Lewis and Clark. And I will say I am pretty proud of myself for never having tripped while walking backwards on any tours. So that is a good highlight for me. But just being able to introduce these students into my world and tell them about how passionate I am and tell them about how much you can do because you can really do everything. You can be a club president, varsity athlete, go abroad. Like you can really do everything on campus. And that's something that's really awesome and that students need to hear like firsthand. And a lot of times people think that being a tour guide is about selling the school, but it's really not. It's about giving students an idea of if they can find a home here. And it's okay if they don't, but they need to understand that what's here, people are going to support you and people are going to love that you chose to come to Lewis and Clark.
Well, and we are happy that you also chose to do that. And this is what I talked about, the transition from being a student to alumnus. We hope to see you again in Portland, have you come visit us in the golf program and everything else you're involved in. Congratulations on graduating. I wish it had been in far better circumstances, but hopefully it builds your character. And we really appreciate your presence on Palatine Hill. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.
And Annika Clunk joining us on lcpioneers.com. Yeah, a lot of fun to talk to her. She, had a very unique situation with Lewis and Clark being one of our senior student athletes and not getting to walk at commencement. And Lewis and Clark, I think, did as best the best thing that they could do to try to supply all of our students with the best commencement that they could virtually, especially with a timetable of 6 to 7 weeks. So even less really if you think about it. So congratulations, class of 2020. Congratulations, Annika. And I just loved uh, all of her anecdotes, all of her stories had to do with one of my favorite things about Lewis and Clark is that experiential liberal arts environment. There's lots of opportunities within liberal arts, regardless of where you go, to get lots of perspective and learn how to think. And that is certainly the value, the adaptability of a liberal arts degree. But at Lewis and Clark, the experiences that they get to kind of do that in real time and have a breadth of experience within that line of liberal arts education has always really stood out to me. And whether it was Wintram, like she talked about, her overseas study program, the experience of being student athlete, or she even wrapped up with the idea of clubs and tour guide, all these other things she was involved in. I think she's going to have a lot of success. And it was neat, too, to hear her talk about impacting others as well, because that's also a staple of the Lewis and Clark graduates that I meet and have a chance to get to know. So, a great appearance by Annika. We really appreciate her taking the time to join us and give her perspective, a recent graduate at Lewis and Clark College. So, with that said, we have a pretty fun week ahead of us. We did a flip flop with tomorrow and Thursday's show. So interim director of physical education and athletics, Mark Petrock, will now join us tomorrow at 11:30. We're Tuesday through Friday, live on Facebook and archived youtube.com/lcpios. And then head coach of the swimming programs, Chris Fonts, will now join us on Thursday. And then we'll bring in Joseph Fastuca from campus living on Friday, and one of the goals of the show has been to bring in different voices from the Lewis and Clark community, and we'll find out, as also a member of student life like athletics, how campus living is impacting the life of students at Lewis and Clark and student athletes as well. Next week, Sarah Howard, dual sport athlete, women's soccer and track and field, will join us. Peyton Romo from women's basketball, still finishing out our lineup as well. If you have a suggestion for the show, we'd love to hear it. Again, you can email us sports@lclark.edu in the comments below on Facebook Live, and also on Instagram and Twitter at LC Pioneers on both. If you want to check out, or I recommend you check out lcpioneers.com/YLC. You can keep updated on what's going on throughout the Lewis and Clark community. Take a virtual visit of campus, have an opportunity to kind of keep connected and see all the latest events that our admissions programs and others are putting up. That's one of the ways that you can keep connected with us while we're all off campus. So until we talk to you tomorrow with interim AD Mark Petrock, I will get his perspective on 30 plus years of being on Palatine Hill as the head athletic trainer. I'm Ryan Goff. Thanks for having fun with us. Big thanks to Annika again for joining us. And we'll see you again tomorrow for more lcpioneers.com live on Facebook Live and archived on YouTube. Goodbye, everybody.
I think everyone should take intro to chemistry because the chemistry department here is phenomenal. Everyone I've known has had a good experience with everyone in that department, so I think it's a worthwhile course to take.
What is one class that everyone should take at Lewis and Clark? I really enjoyed education in a complex world. You kind of get to discuss all the issues that exist within education today, and you get to kind of explore that by going to classrooms firsthand and volunteering with children, which I thought was a really wonderful experience.
One class that everybody should take at Lewis and Clark is anything with Kundai Chirindo. I think he definitely changed how I thought about rhetoric and media studies and just education in general.
For me, it was international affairs, just intro to international affairs, because I think it really gives a good perspective on important issues around the world.
Lewis and Clark is amazing.
Beautiful campus, small classes.
When you really come here, you get this sense and the feeling that this is a place that you could spend 4 years.
I was so comfortable learning and growing here.
There's no ostentation, there's no pretension, no status. Everyone's just here to learn.
To this bustling metropolitan area.
The overseas program is giving you the opportunity to explore the world, go to places that you never thought of. Just come here, just visit the school, and you're gonna fall in love with it.
It's time to explore Lewis and Clark.